Himmel from Frieren is one of the most memorable characters that we have seen in this series, and in his first appearance, we got invested to this character and what kind of person he was, and the many accomplishments that he did during his lifetime. Himmel is a prime example as to what happens when someone's actions and words not only affect the world that they live in, but also leave a huge impact to the people around them. And that is exactly what Himmel did during his lifetime, even though he was clearly somebody that wasn't always going to be around. Like Frieren, his legacy and everything that he did, it's always going to be something that is worth remembering and something that many characters will never forget, and his stories will never really die out because there's always going to be somebody that is going to remember who Himmel was, and that is that he was a hero, the hero that not only defeated the Demon King, but also the hero that helped so many lives and changed the world for the better. Himmel, despite the first episode introducing us to him and then showing us his passing, and later on when we do see moments with Himmel will be with flashbacks. In these flashbacks alone, we still get to see how much of a great person he was. And we get to see why Frieren not only has so much respect for him, but we see how she was able to cherish every moment that she spent time with him, no matter how small that memory may be. When it comes to the definition of a hero, we usually use the word hero when we see somebody saving the day, or we see the good guys always trying to defeat the evil guys or evil itself, and they do this with good intentions to protect those people that need protecting and to protect the innocent lives from any kinds of danger. And while yes, this definition of a hero is accurate, there's also different meanings of the word hero. And the actions of a hero doesn't mean that they just simply come in and just save the day like nothing else. No, there's also other things that can also make a person a hero. Like when Eisen tells Himmel, why do they spend a good portion of their journey helping people out with small tasks instead of just simply focusing on defeating the Demon King? Himmel responds by saying that while these tasks may be seen as insignificant or not necessary to do, it's always important to help the people out whenever they are in trouble, regardless of how big or small that problem may be, because that is something a hero would do, help people who are in need of helping. And that's just only one of the things that makes Himmel such a fascinating character. Another thing is just his ideals and his mindset and how he wants to spend his time and enjoy every little bit of his life. While Himmel's main goal was to defeat the Demon Lord so that people can live in peace and not have to worry about the evilness that is in the world, he also at the same time never forgot about the littlest things that were happening around him. He always spent his journey enjoying every moment of it because life was very limited, especially with Himmel, because unlike Frieren or Eisen, who were an elf and a dwarf, Himmel was human. And as many of you are probably fully aware at this point, is that humans don't live that long. We all have a very limited amount of time on this earth. But even though our time on earth is limited, we all try to cherish every moment that happens in our life. We all try to have as much fun as possible and try new things or experience new things before we regret not doing them. That's just the fun aspect of life, is doing things and experiencing things that while it may not seem as important as many other different things in life, it is something that is worth doing because it just creates memories that you look back and you think about all the things that you were able to do during your lifespan. It is something that we see in Himmel very clearly during his journey, whether it's interacting with different kinds of people, going into many different locations, exploring different locations, or just simply having normal or funny conversations with the other members of his party, is these moments that really make him all the more happy to be in this journey, because he's not only creating memories, but he's also just enjoying life overall. And it's because of this mindset that we see a lot in Frieren during her own story. We see that she, just like Himmel, is also enjoying her journey with her own group. We see that she's taking her time exploring every little thing that is happening around her. Because just like Himmel, there's no need to rush with your adventure. And you should cherish every moment that happens during your adventure, no matter how big or small it might be. But despite all this, there are a lot of things about Himmel as well that you may be shocked to find out as the series continues. Like for example, when we come to find out that Himmel wasn't actually the true hero. You see, one of Himmel's dreams was to be able to acquire the hero sword. This sword was only going to be used by somebody that the sword sees as a hero. However, when the time came, and it was Himmel's turn to try to take the sword out of the rock, he couldn't, implying that the sword didn't see Himmel as a hero or the person who was supposed to wield the sword. And this was a massive twist because in a way, this indicates that Himmel was a fake hero. But despite the title of the true hero not being a part of Himmel, that didn't stop him and that didn't let him down whatsoever. Sure, it is sad and shocking that he wasn't able to get the hero sword, but this reveal actually made Himmel such an even more amazing character because this means that Himmel was able to defeat the Demon King with just a regular sword. He didn't need a power-up from the hero sword in order to defeat the Demon Lord. No, all he needed was just his determination, his courage, and most important, his party to defeat the Demon King once and for all. And this becomes even more powerful when you also come to realize that Frieren, Eisen, and Heiter knew full well that Himmel was not the true hero, yet they still went on with his journey to defeating the Demon Lord, showing just how much confidence and how much respect they had and loyalty towards Himmel as they continued to follow him for his mission to defeat this Demon Lord. It shows that while they were fully aware that Himmel was not the true hero, they still had faith in him, and the amount of time they spent with him, they came to the realization that if anybody was capable of defeating this demon would be none other than Himmel. And they couldn't be more correct, as that's exactly what would happen. Himmel will be the person to defeat the Demon King, and Himmel will be the reason why the world was filled with so much peace. But of course, the most obvious thing of Himmel's character is none other than his relationship with Frieren. It's very obvious from the very moment that we saw them interact that Himmel had special feelings for Frieren, and unfortunately, while Himmel was very obvious about this, Frieren never saw this at all. She never picked up at the fact that Himmel had romantic feelings. She never really thought about it whatsoever until sadly it was years after his passing, where while subtle, you can clearly see that Frieren is now coming to slowly realize that Himmel made it very obvious of his love towards her. And it's not like these feelings came out of nowhere or were out of the blue. It will be later revealed in the series during a conversation with Himmel and Frieren, when Frieren asks Himmel why he chose her as the mage for his party, and Himmel comes out clean saying that while Frieren may not remember who he was or if there was any history between them, Himmel knew very well that even before the heroes party was formed, he actually had interacted with Frieren in the past, and it was actually when he was still a kid. You see, one night Himmel was actually lost in the forest and he didn't know where his home was, and of course, like any kid in this age, they would be panicking and scared and wouldn't know what to do in this situation. But while all this was happening, somebody was in the forest as well, and this was none other than Frieren. At first, Himmel was kind of scared of Frieren because despite Frieren trying to help him out, she had a very cold personality. It seemed that she didn't really seem to be like she is now. But when Frieren saw this, she tried to make Himmel better, and that is by using one of her favorite spells, and that is the spell to create beautiful flowers. And it worked because Himmel was not only surprised, but he will also state that looking back, that was the first time that he actually saw magic very beautifully, and it's the first time that he was actually very interested in magic thanks to that spell that Frieren casted. And ever since then, it seems that Himmel never forgot about Frieren and that interaction, and of course as time passed on, he with no hesitation asked Frieren to join his party. Yes, there were other mages at the time that could have done the job just as Frieren as well, but because Himmel had a special place in his heart for Frieren, he did not want any other mage that wasn't Frieren. And I think this is a very beautiful story of how clearly, even during a young age, Himmel already showed signs of affection towards Frieren. You could argue is a classic case of love at first sight, which makes it even more tragic that these two never ended up together. And it's even more tragic that when you see the old Himmel all by himself and clearly no longer at his prime, it's even sad to realize that Himmel pretty much spent his life all alone. He never had another person be his wife, and due to him not having a wife or a love interest, this led to him not being able to form a family, not being able to have kids of his own. which is very unfortunate to see because if anybody deserved happiness is Himmel. But despite these two never forming a deeper relationship between one another, you can obviously tell that Himmel is somebody that Frieren will never forget. She is never going to be able to forget all those memories and all those times that she spent with him, no matter what the circumstances. Every time you see Frieren mention Himmel or is talking about a memory with Himmel, you can tell that she is very happy just simply talking about Himmel in general. And if it was up to her, she would have probably told countless stories of Himmel to Fern and Stark with no hesitation whatsoever. I mean, Frieren herself admits that the reason why she oftentimes looks for very odd spells or very unusual spells that not a lot of mages are interested in is because every time she showed a weird spell to Himmel, he was always having a great time and he was always laughing and had a smile on his face every time Frieren showed one of her new spells. So because of that, Frieren never stopped doing it. Frieren never stopped looking or trying to find unusual spells because every time she does that, she's always reminded that Himmel used to always love when she did those kind of things. Himmel is a great representation of how, despite someone no longer being a part of the world, their legacy still lives on. Himmel has been pretty much not been in the world of Frieren for a very long time. It's been years since his passing, but despite all this time, his memories and his legacy will never be forgotten. People still talk about Himmel. His stories are still being told. His story of him defeating the Demon Lord is still mentioned. There's statues of him in many different locations, and the most important thing of all is that people not only remember him as the hero that defeated the Demon Lord, but they also remember all the good things he did for just anybody that he saw was in need of help. The smallest things that he would do to help someone out are also things that people still talk about Himmel to this very day. Like during the aftermath of the first COAG Mage exam arc, when Frieren has a discussion with another mage known as Werbo, he says how Himmel is a huge inspiration to him and he actually saved his town. But one thing that he never understood as a kid is why the people of the town never really talked about his stories of him defeating demons or him defeating monsters. It was always just stories of Himmel helping out a merchant or Himmel helping with everyday things. For Werble, when he was a kid, these stories were boring. They were not really interesting stories and they were nothing compared to what he did with, of course, defeating evil. But as he slowly started to grow up, he came to the realization that these stories were also just as important as his stories of him fighting monsters. Sure, fighting monsters and Himmel defeating them is also a very heroic thing, but that's not all that makes a person a hero, like I mentioned before. Himmel helping people showed that he was not only a good person, but he had good intentions and his heart was in the right place. And now Werble understands why so many people treasure those moments is because those moments are also special in their own way. And that is the overall beauty of Himmel, a man who in a way isn't considered the true hero, but everything that he did is the definition of what a hero is supposed to be. And it's no wonder why so many people have so much respect for this man, not just with the characters of the series, but overall the people watching this series as well also have respect for everything that Himmel did. He was a man who was not only brave, courageous, nice, funny, etc. He was somebody that really brought joy to so many people and really impacted everybody that he met. And because of his existence, so many people's lives changed in some shape or form. And even though he's no longer here, there is people like Frieren that are still going to remember his name. And even Frieren states herself, the world is truly a better place and that Himmel doesn't have to worry about anything because his overall goal of creating peace was achieved. And none of this would have happened if it wasn't for him. And that is why Himmel is the definition of a true hero. And that's where I'm going to end today's video. I hope you enjoyed it and I'll see you next time.